Okay, so imagine this. You're sitting in a courtroom watching one of the most high-profile war crime trials in history. The judge is about to give his ruling, the cameras are rolling, the world is watching, and then, out of nowhere, the defendant pulls out a little bottle and drinks poison, live on TV. Yeah, this actually happened. And the guy's name? Slobodan Praljak. Now, let's break this insane story down because, trust me, it's one of the most wild things you will ever hear. Slobodan Praljak was a Bosnian Croat general during the Yugoslav Wars in the 1990s. Yugoslavia broke apart in the early 90s and things got really violent. Ethnic groups who used to live together, Croats, Serbs and Bosnians, suddenly became enemies. It was brutal, it was messy, and thousands of civilians were killed in horrific ways. Praljak wasn't just some random dude who got cut up in all this. He was a general. He was in command. This means he had a lot of power during this war. Fast forward a few years, and he gets charged by the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. Basically, the UN Special Court set up in The Hague to deal with war crimes committed during the Yugoslavian Wars. Now, Praljak had been on trial for years, and when I say years, I mean this guy had been fighting his case for over a decade. And in 2013, he was convicted of war crimes against humanity, and violating the laws of war. Specifically, he was found guilty of ordering the destruction of Mostar's famous Old Bridge, which was a cultural landmark, and for crimes against Bosnian Muslims. But here's the thing, Praljak hated that conviction. He saw himself as a soldier, not a criminal. In his mind, everything he did was part of defending his people. And for years, he appealed his conviction, claiming he was innocent and that history got it all wrong. Alright, so let's jump to November 29, 2017. This was the day everything went down. The court in The Hague was giving its final ruling on his appeal. The world was watching because this wasn't just any trial. It was one of the last big cases from the Yugoslavia Wars. The judges start reading the verdict, and it's not looking good for Praljak. His conviction was upheld. The guilty verdict stands. This man's going to spend 20 years in prison, which personally I don't think is long enough. And that's when he does the craziest thing. As soon as he hears the ruling, Praljak stands up, looks at the judge, and shouts, "Slobodan Praljak is not a war criminal. I reject your judgment." And then, boom, he reaches into his pocket, pulls out a small bottle, opens it, and downs it in one gulp. The courtroom goes completely silent. The judges are stunned. His lawyers are panicking. Someone yells out, "He drank poison! He drank poison!" And the cameras caught it all on live TV. Millions of people around the world saw this unfold in real time. Now, here's the wild part. At first, people weren't sure if he was bluffing. Like, did he pretend to drink something to make a point? But no. Minutes later, he collapses. Emergency medics rush in. They stop the proceedings. They even close the courtroom curtains. But it's too late. He died shortly afterwards in a hospital in The Hague. The official cause of death? Potassium cyanide poisoning. Yeah, this man smuggled cyanide into a court and took it in front of the entire world. And now, you're probably wondering, how the hell did he get poison into one of the most secure courts in the world? Like, this is The Hague. This is the UN. This isn't some local traffic court. But that's exactly what made this so controversial. After his death, a full investigation was launched. People wanted answers. Did he have help? Was it an inside job? How did the poison get past all the security checks? Because remember, this wasn't just any defendant. This was a convicted war criminal in a high-profile international trial. Security should have been strict. Turns out, To this day, no one really knows how he got that poison. Some believe he had it on him for months, maybe even years, just waiting for the final verdict. Others think someone else must have smuggled it in for him, but the investigation never gave a clear answer. It remains one of those big mysteries in international justice. Now, let's talk about why he did it, because that's $1 million question here, right? Praljak always denied being a war criminal. He saw himself as a patriot, not a villain. By drinking poison in front of the judges, the media, and the world, he was basically making one last statement. You will not define me, I will. It was his way of rejecting the court's authority and controlling how his story ended. And let's be real, it worked. Because instead of being another convicted war criminal who died in prison, his death became international news. People weren't just talking about his crimes anymore. They were talking about his dramatic final act. In a twisted way, he made sure he had the final word. But here's where things get even more interesting. Reactions to his death were super divided. Some Croats actually praised him, saying he was a hero who died with honor, refusing to accept an unjust verdict. In Croatia, the government even flew flags in his honor, which pissed off a lot of people who saw him as a criminal. On the other hand, for the Bosnians, his death was seen as an escape. They felt like he avoided truly facing justice. Imagine surviving a war, waiting decades to see someone held accountable, and then this guy just goes ahead and kills himself live on TV, right as the final verdict comes out. For them, it felt like justice slipped away right at the last second. And then there's the court itself. The whole thing was a massive embarrassment for the UN. They had spent billions of dollars running this tribunal for decades, trying to prove that international law can hold war criminals accountable. And then, right at the finish line, one of the defendants takes poison in their courtroom, making a mockery of the whole process. Oh, and by the way, Praljak wasn't just any war criminal. Before the war, he was actually kind of a fascinating guy. He studied electrical engineering, philosophy, sociology, and film directing. Yeah, this individual held degrees in 4 different fields. He even worked as a theatre director before joining the army. Imagine being like, hey, I'm directing Shakespeare today, and tomorrow I'll be commanding troops in a war. Wild. So, when you put it all together, Slobodan Praljak's story is one of those bizarre, tragic, and shocking pieces of history that shows just how messy war, justice, and the human pride can get. He was a man who refused to let anyone else write the last chapter of his life, and he proved it in the most dramatic way possible. Because how often do you see someone literally take their own life mid-trial with cameras rolling just to make a point? In the end, Slobodan Praljak will forever be remembered as the war criminal who staged his own shocking finale in front of the entire world. As someone with personal connections to this awful war, I believe he was just pure evil. This man took thousands of lives. He took part in a joint criminal enterprise to ethnically cleanse Bosnia and Herzegovina of its Muslim population. Sound familiar? Maybe we should learn from history, not repeat it. And rather than face his crimes, he took the cowardly way out.